When the private jet carrying Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu landed quietly at the Ouagadougou International Airport under heavy security, few knew that this unannounced visit would test the future of West Africa. Inside the presidential palace, Ibrahim Traoré, still wearing the simple green fatigues he preferred over tailored suits, prepared himself for a conversation that would either strengthen Africa's unity or fracture it for decades. Hours before, Netanyahu's envoys had delivered a cryptic message. Israel was ready to offer Burkina Faso lucrative weapons deals and covert intelligence support to manage troublesome neighbors. In exchange for a discreet agreement that would divide certain Sahel alliances, Traoré saw through it immediately. It was an attempt to isolate certain African leaders, to sow distrust and dependency. In the palace's marble reception room, Netanyahu entered with the polished confidence of a man used to getting what he wanted. Traoré stood to greet him, not with the deference many leaders offered, but as an equal, eyes steady, handshake firm. "Mr. Prime Minister," Traoré said, motioning for him to sit. "We are both men who know how to protect our people, so let's be honest with each other today. No masks." Netanyahu smiled thinly, dropping the diplomatic small talk. "Good. Then I'll be direct. You have security threats you cannot handle alone. Israel can ensure you stay in power. All I ask is that you let us handle certain arrangements in the region." Traoré leaned back, expression unreadable. He knew this was no ordinary negotiation. It was the opening move of a hidden war over Africa's sovereignty. And in that moment, he decided he wouldn't just say no. He would turn this game against Netanyahu and show every African nation that unity could beat manipulation. As the meeting unfolded, Netanyahu's proposals grew bolder. He spoke of funding special security units, providing drone fleets, and offering discreet surveillance technology, things Burkina Faso's struggling military could desperately use. But every promise came with an invisible chain. Israel would gain private mining rights in disputed borderlands and would be free to operate intelligence cells under the guise of advisors. Traoré listened in silence, never interrupting. Outside the palace windows, the city buzzed, unaware that inside, their leader was fighting to keep his country from becoming a puppet. Netanyahu misread the silence for hesitation. "You need more time to think, Captain?" Netanyahu asked, voice slick. "Take a few days. I have friends in Washington, too. They'll make sure any resistance from your regional partners disappears." Traoré's eyes flickered with a cold resolve. He poured himself tea, deliberately ignoring the Israeli leader's attempt at pressure. "Mr. Prime Minister," he said calmly, "let me tell you something about Africa. For centuries, outsiders believed we are too divided to resist. They think they can buy our leaders one by one. But those days are dying faster than you realize." Netanyahu chuckled dismissively, but something in Traoré's voice unsettled him. The young president leaned forward, his tone dropping to a quiet threat. "When you land back in Tel Aviv, tell your friends in Washington, Burkina Faso is not for sale, and neither is Africa's soul." Netanyahu's smile faltered. He realized too late. Traoré wasn't bargaining for a better deal. He was setting a trap for anyone who tried to divide the continent again. The moment Netanyahu left the palace, Traoré summoned his closest circle, trusted ministers and regional envoys from Mali, Niger, and Ghana. They gathered in a secure chamber beneath the presidential residence, away from any prying electronic ears. He paced as he spoke, voice low but electric with purpose. "He thinks we will fold because we are desperate for weapons. He underestimates the will of this land. We won't confront this alone. We will turn every African nation that ever felt bullied into our ally." Foreign Minister Zida, usually cautious, was the first to speak up. "If we expose Netanyahu's plan, we risk Israel retaliating politically and economically. They could freeze aid, lobby sanctions, Traoré cut him off sharply. Let them try. A man without chains fears nothing. He spread a map across the table, red lines showing Israeli outreach in the Sahel and beyond. They target our divisions, so we show the world our unity instead. We call an extraordinary summit. Every leader who still dreams of a sovereign Africa must stand beside us now. If Netanyahu wants to divide Africa, we will force him to watch it unite before his eyes. Around the table, old doubts dissolved into fire. Even the older ministers, once skeptical of Traoré's boldness, nodded as one. The trap Netanyahu had set had just been flipped. Africa would answer with one voice. Within 48 hours, encrypted messages were flying from Ouagadougou to capital cities across West and Central Africa. Presidents, generals, and grassroots leaders who had long kept silent about foreign meddling now received an invitation they could not ignore. Come to Ouagadougou, witness the truth, stand with us or watch us stand alone, but know the world is watching. In the meantime, Traoré orchestrated his next move with surgical precision. Trusted intelligence officers quietly gathered documents, recordings, and signed communiques Netanyahu's envoys had carelessly left behind. Proof that Israel's covert plan went far beyond Burkina Faso, that similar offers had been floated to divide Nigeria's north, to influence Chad's border patrols, and to arm local militias loyal to foreign interests. Traoré didn't just want to reject the offer, he wanted to burn its legitimacy to ashes. That night, as news of the coming summit leaked to international press, Israel's Foreign Office scrambled to deny any unusual agreements in West Africa. Netanyahu's own advisors panicked, realizing Traoré had turned their hidden leverage into a time bomb ready to explode on the world stage. And as the streets of Ouagadougou filled with flags from across the continent, one thing was clear. This was no longer just about Burkina Faso. It was about whether Africa would kneel again or rise as one. The day of the summit arrived like a storm breaking over the capital. Ouagadougou's main boulevard, once a quiet stretch of government buildings and dusty traffic, now roared with motorcades bearing flags from every corner of the continent. Security was tight. Snipers on rooftops, drones overhead, and plainclothes loyalists scattered through the crowd. But the real shield was the people themselves, thousands lining the streets, chanting Traoré's name. Inside the Grand Hall, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation and distrust. Leaders who rarely shared the same room sat shoulder to shoulder. Nigeria, Senegal, Kenya, Mali, Ghana, and even some small island nations that had long felt invisible on Africa's stage. They were wary. Many had once benefited from playing foreign powers against each other. But Traoré had given them no place to hide. He rose to speak without prepared notes, his voice cutting through the low hum of whispers. Brothers and sisters, today is not a day for polite speeches or hollow declarations. Today, we strip the mask off the betrayal that has haunted Africa for centuries. He gestured to a giant screen behind him. One by one, his intelligence chief projected evidence, intercepted emails, discreet video clips of Netanyahu's envoys discussing mining deals behind closed doors, maps showing planned covert bases camouflaged as aid centers. Gasps and murmurs turned to anger as the truth played out for all to see. Israel thought they could divide us, but I say this: no foreign power will ever again dictate which of us is weak and which of us is strong. Not on my watch, not on Africa's watch. The hall erupted in applause, some standing, some pounding their fists on tables. For the first time in decades, a leader wasn't asking for unity, he was demanding it. As the summit continued, some leaders pushed back. The president of an oil-rich country, long rumored to have secret deals with Israeli firms, tried to downplay the evidence. This is all dramatic, but if we turn our backs on our foreign partners, who pays for our roads? Who keeps our armies fed? Traoré didn't flinch. He locked eyes with him and asked, "And who profits from your oil? Who banks your wealth while your children drink dirty water?" The question hung in the air like a blade. No one spoke. Then, to everyone's surprise, Ghana's president, a usually soft-spoken man, stood up. Traoré is right. They pay for our roads, but they own the trucks that run on them. They feed our armies, but they arm our enemies too. We either keep playing their game or we build a new one. Today, I choose Africa. One by one, the room shifted. Skeptics turned into allies. Reluctant leaders found courage. Outside, crowds heard the roars of approval echo through the marble walls. In a single day, Netanyahu's plan had backfired spectacularly. What was meant to be a secret web of influence had sparked the greatest show of African unity in decades. Back in Tel Aviv, Netanyahu received hourly updates, each one more infuriating than the last. He had underestimated the young captain. Worse, he had underestimated Africa's hunger to stand as one. That night, as the summit closed its second day, Traoré sat alone in his private chamber, the hum of the crowd still audible through the thick walls. He replayed the day's speeches in his mind, both the thunderous support and the hidden resentments he'd glimpsed in certain eyes. Unity was not a switch to flip, it was a fire to feed constantly. A quiet knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Maurice Sankara, his trusted but unflinching security chief. He entered without waiting for permission, a sealed envelope in his hand. Traoré's jaw tightened. He knew that look. "What is it, Maurice?" "Intercepted communique. Netanyahu's team is trying to bribe two of our key allies to break ranks and discredit tomorrow's final resolution. They're offering new weapons and millions in cash. They think one good defection will shatter the whole front." Traoré took the letter, read it once, then burned it in a nearby dish. "Do we know who they approached?" Maurice nodded grimly. "Yes, and I trust them less than I trust a scorpion in my boot." Traoré leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Then tonight we talk to them, not as president and ally, but as brothers. If they betray us, they'll lose not just my trust, but their people's faith. I won't fight this war in secret, Maurice. Not like Netanyahu. If Africa stands together, it must be because every leader stands before his people unmasked." Maurice gave a rare, approving smile. "Then let's unmask them." While Netanyahu's envoys scrambled in luxury hotels to buy influence with suitcases of cash, Traoré walked unannounced into his fellow president's guest suites. No cameras, no bodyguards, only his unwavering stare and unfiltered truth. By dawn, the betrayal was no longer an option. The summit would close not in whispers and bribes, but in thunder. Morning broke with a tropical rain that beat drums against the summit's massive windows. Inside, the final session began. This time, every leader wore a subtle tension on their faces. This was the moment. Either the continent would emerge with a single ironclad pact of unity, or Netanyahu's poison would splinter it at the final hour. Traoré took the stage. He didn't bring slides or security this time. He brought only a battered leather-bound folder, his father's old journal, the man who taught him that a real leader fears nothing except silence in the face of injustice. He read aloud passages about hunger, colonial lies, and the price of forgotten dreams. Then he closed it gently and looked each president dead in the eye. "Israel wanted Africa's gold," he said, voice calm but thundering through the chamber. "They thought we would sell it for crumbs because they believe we are still for sale. But our real gold is here." He tapped his chest. "And here." He gestured to the hall, to every seat filled by Africa's sons and daughters. He then held up a single sheet, a new continental charter. Mutual defense, shared resource control, a public audit of all foreign contracts, and a permanent African council to prevent betrayals like this from ever festering again. "Sign this now," he said softly, "or go home tonight and tell your children you chose gold over their future." The hall fell silent. Pens scratched paper. The sound was louder than any speech. Netanyahu's plan had been buried by Africa's new oath. Outside the Grand Hall, Netanyahu's delegation watched helplessly through screens and encrypted channels. His top advisor paced in frustration, phone pressed to his ear, whispering desperate updates to Tel Aviv. The plan had seemed flawless: old rivalries, greed, hidden arms deals. It had worked 100 times before. But not this time. Inside, Traoré was already moving to the next step. He called an unscheduled press conference, inviting the world's media to witness what he called the real signing day of African independence. Dozens of microphones captured every word as he stood shoulder to shoulder with the same presidents Netanyahu had tried to bribe hours earlier. "My brothers and sisters of Africa," he began, voice steady, even as the crowd outside chanted his name. "Today we bury the idea that a foreign power can divide us with shiny promises and whispered threats. Today we prove that Africa's strength is not its gold or oil, but its people's trust in one another." One by one, the leaders signed the charter live on camera. The footage would go viral within minutes. Headlines screamed, "Africa unites against foreign manipulation." Some called it symbolic, others called it dangerous. Traoré called it overdue. As he stepped away from the podium, a young journalist shouted, "President Traoré, aren't you afraid this will make powerful enemies?" He paused, smiled faintly, and answered so only the nearest microphones caught it. "Africa's had powerful enemies for centuries. Let them fear us for a change." Outside, the rain had stopped. The crowd roared louder than the storm had ever dared. That evening, as the summit hall emptied and the last security details guided foreign delegations to the airport, Traoré stayed behind alone for a moment. He walked back to the stage, now littered with stray papers, signed documents, and cables. He bent down and picked up his father's journal, tucked it under his arm, and sat on the edge of the wooden stage. The echoes of history felt heavy, yet light on his shoulders at the same time. Behind him, Maurice Sankara appeared silently, giving him a respectful distance before speaking. "You know Netanyahu won't forgive this, Ibrahim. He will come back at us. Maybe not tomorrow, but someday. Maybe not him, but men like him." Traoré nodded slowly, staring at the rows of empty chairs. "And we will be ready. Because today these chairs were not filled with leaders alone. They were filled with people who chose to remember who they are." Maurice stepped closer, offering a hand to help him stand. Traoré accepted it. As they walked out together into the humid night, the crowds waiting outside parted like a sea. They didn't chant his name this time. They simply watched him with quiet, unshakable belief. No gold, no foreign promises, only trust. And as Traoré raised a single hand in acknowledgement, it wasn't just a salute to victory, it was a promise, never again divided. And so tonight, under African skies, a leader chose unity over bribes, truth over fear, and his people over all else. Netanyahu may have misjudged him, but the world won't forget what happened here. If you believe Africa's true wealth lies in its courage, its people, and its unbreakable spirit, share this story. Because sometimes one man's stand becomes a continent's roar. Thank you for watching.